Hi, my name is Laura. If you're new to this channel, I have type 1 diabetes. I was diagnosed when I was 25, about a year and a half ago. Today's video is all about my transition from being on multiple daily injections of insulin to using an insulin pump. And my insulin pump actually just arrived in the mail today, and I'm really excited about it. I chose the Omnipod system. Omnipod is the only tubeless pump that's available in the market right now, which is why I was drawn to it. And this will be about my first week transitioning from being on multiple daily injections to using an insulin pump and just how that experience is. So this is what's inside my starter kit. So there is a pack of 10 pods, a lancing device, a cover for the PDM, it looks like manuals in here. Ooh, I get some lancets and some test strips that must go with the PDM. And then the PDM. So it's 3 days before my pump start date, and I found out from my endocrinologist that I need to reduce my Traceba dose for the 3 days leading up to my appointment. So I would normally take 6 units of Traceba every night, and for the next 3 nights I'm going to take 4 units of Traceba instead. Good morning. So it's the day of my pump start, and I'm about to do my very last insulin injection with an insulin pen before I start my pump. So I'm doing my pump start virtually from home. So there's a rep from Omnipod that's going to be calling me, and she's going to talk me through setting up and putting on the insulin pump. So she asked me to get a couple of things before our appointment. So I have a vial of NovaRapid here, as well as one of the pods, and then each pod comes with a syringe to fill the pod with insulin. And then in addition to that, I have my PDM, which runs the pod when it's on. And the next time I see you, I'm gonna be wearing an insulin pump. Yes. I'm so excited. I'm thinking I'm gonna put my insulin pump on the back of my arm, just because I'm so used to wearing a Freestyle Libre in the same spot. I just figured it would be an easier transition to wearing something there. But we'll see, she might have some different recommendations of where it should go. Yeah. I'm like bouncing off the walls right now, I'm so excited. Okay, so I'm all done my pump training. And I've got my Omnipod on, and it's so cool. The virtual training went really well. I think it was super easy to set up, so that was nice. I have a 50% temp basal on right now, just because I know I still have some Traceba active from the last couple days, so I'm just gonna keep an eye on things to make sure I don't have a double dose of basal going on and going low all the time. I'm really excited to have my first meal where I get to use my pump and I don't have to give an injection. I can just type in the number of carbs on here. I think that's so cool. It's lunchtime and I'm about to take my first bolus with my pump. All right, current blood glucose, let's check here. 4.1. So I'm gonna scroll on here until I get to 4.1 and say yes. Are you going to eat now? Yes. Enter carbs. I think carbs for lunch is going to be 55. Just keep scrolling. Enter. Suggested bolus right now is 2.5 units. So my normal insulin to carb ratio is 1 to 12. Right now my endo says it's set at 1 to 20. Just because we're not sure how my transition to using only rapid acting insulin is going to go. So I will trust this 2.5 units. All right, here we go. I'm about to bolus for lunch. Confirm. Delivering bolus. This is way better than giving an injection, oh my gosh. That's so simple. So now that my pod is all set up, I'm gonna revamp my diabetes organization stuff. So I don't need the pen needles anymore, and I don't need pens. So I'm gonna switch out things in here for all my pump supplies. So now I have my vial of insulin. I also have syringes in case I needed to do a manual injection in case my pod wasn't working. I have my lancing device, all my extra pods, and lots of alcohol swabs. It's the end of the very first day, and I think it went pretty well. I've changed my settings a little bit. So my insulin to carb ratio that my endo recommended was going to be 1 to 20, and I just don't think that's enough insulin, so I've changed it to 1 to 17 just to have a little bit more. and I was running a negative 50% temp basal all through the day, and I found that was just like, it was a little bit too much insulin, so I've reduced it even more, so it's a negative 60% temp basal right now. I'm about to get ready for bed, and the alarm just went off on my phone to take my Traceba, and it's so weird that I don't have to take that anymore. So I just deleted the alarm off my phone. I don't have the Traceba pen anymore because I don't need it, and it's one less thing to do before bed, which is really nice. And I don't know, this still just doesn't feel real. I haven't wrapped my head around it yet. So because I still have some Traceba on board, plus I have my temp basal running, I'm a little curious to see what my blood sugar is going to be like overnight. So I've set an alarm for 2 a.m. tomorrow morning so I can check what my blood sugar is in the middle of the night, just in case I'm running high or running low. I just want to see where things are at. I think tomorrow afternoon I won't have any more acting Traceba left in my body, so I'll have a better idea for what my basal rate should be and my insulin to carb ratio, but for now I'm just trying to adjust things so I can have some smooth sailing blood sugars for the time being. I've really enjoyed it. Bolusing for meals is so easy. It's really convenient not to have to walk away from what you're doing to go give yourself an injection. So I really like having the PDM because I can be in the middle of cooking dinner and I know I'm about 10 to 15 minutes from what I'm going to be eating, and I can just take my PDM, enter in all my information, and give the bolus then without having to walk away. I can't tell you how many pots of water have boiled over while I've been cooking because I've walked away to give myself an injection and I've come back and it's a disaster in my kitchen. So I really appreciate the fact that there's less distractions in the day. It's really nice. So far I'm liking the placement of it. It's a little bit uncomfortable when I'm lying down in bed, I've noticed, so I'm hoping it's just because I've never worn one before and it's kind of new to me. And again, it's only on for 3 days, so if it turns out I really don't like this position, it's not a big deal. I can just switch it out the next time. It's important to rotate them around. My Omnipod trainer recommended not to go back to the same site for 30 days, so she said if you have 10 to 12 spots you like to use, that would be ideal, and I'm just going to continue to cycle through those every month. So it's now been a full day using the Omnipod. Last night went really well. My blood sugar I think was around 6.2 when I went to bed, and when I woke up it was 5.9. It was a pretty steady line overnight, which I'm happy about. I think the negative 60% temp basal is working well. However, I do know the Traceba is going to wear off today, so I'll probably have to make some adjustments before the day's over. I'm not entirely happy with my insulin to carb ratio right now. For lunch I usually do 1 to 12. Yesterday I did 1 to 20 like my endocrinologist suggested, and my blood sugar started going high quite quickly after lunch, so I ended up taking a correction and going for a walk. And then today I used 1 to 15 for lunch, and the same thing happened, but not to the same extent. So I think I'm going to go back to 1 to 12 for lunch because I just know that works for me. So I'm making a couple adjustments here and there. My pump trainer contacted me this morning just to ask how things were going, and I let her know that I'd already changed my temp basal and some of my insulin to carb ratios, and I've always been really grateful to have a healthcare team that really makes me feel empowered to make these changes by myself, and they've taken a lot of time to teach me how to make these calculations and to be confident in these changes. So I often change my own settings without consulting my endocrinologist first. That's a personal choice for me. They have no issues with me doing that. We've talked about it quite extensively before. So while I'm going around and changing all the settings in my pump, that might not be for everyone the first day you're using it, but the adjustments I was making, I've just been trying to make them gradual. So I've had the pod on for 3 days now, and it's time to switch it out for a new one. So I'm gonna go ahead and rip off the old one and set up my new pod. So before I take this old pod off, I'm just going into my PDM and deactivating my old pod. The beep means it's done. All right. Oh, that's sticky. So this is what the pod looks like when it's off. You can see the little blue cannula there. That's where the insulin was coming through under my skin. So now I'm going to set up my new pod. The first thing I'm going to do is clean the top of my insulin vial with an alcohol swab, just to make sure it's sterile before I pierce it with the needle. Then I'm going to open up a new pod. So inside the container with the new pod, there's a little vial to drop the insulin with. So I'm going to take the lid off that. I'm going to draw up just with air to 100 units. And then I'm going to push that 100 units of air into the insulin vial. After that, I'm going to drop 100 units of insulin into the syringe. After the insulin is in the syringe, I'm going to try and get rid of some of the bubbles that are in there. So next I'm ready to add my insulin into the pod. So I have my PDM here. My pod needs to be to the right of my PDM to start this. So I'm going to press next to proceed with this. Would you like to activate a pod now? I'm going to say yes. All right, fill new pod with insulin. So there's a little port here on the back of my pod that I'm going to put the syringe into and then slowly fill with insulin. And once the minimum volume of insulin has been reached, it's going to beep 2 times. Just like that. So after I hear the 2 beeps, I'm going to press next here. And now the pod is priming. You can kind of hear it click as it primes, the same kind of clicks it makes when it's on my body. Okay, so it's ready to use now. And I'm going to go ahead and take off this plastic cap for the cannula. I was told to open it kind of like a pop tab. You want to check to make sure the cannula isn't out yet. It should come out after you activate the pod, and this one's good to go. So I'm going to go ahead and put this on my body now. So I've cleaned the site where I want to put the new pod on my abdomen, and I'm going to go ahead and take off the adhesive backing. Okay, it needs to be 2 inches, I believe, away from my belly button, so I'm just going to turn it the other way so the cannula is on the other side. And when you put it on your abdomen, it's supposed to be horizontal, so I'm going to put it here. Okay, I'm going to take my PDM, and pod's okay, apply to site. I've done that. I'm going to hit next and press start to insert cannula and begin basal delivery. So I'm going to press start, and then while I press start, I'm going to pinch here to make sure that the cannula goes into the subcutaneous tissue. Whew. Okay. So that loud snap at the end was it going in. That one hurt a little bit more than the one I put on my arm, but I think it's gonna be okay. That snap, I think, scares me more than the pain of it does. It's just really loud when it happens. After I put it in, I get a question from my PDM asking if the cannula has been inserted properly, and that's yes, so I'm gonna hit yes right now. And it's back delivering my normal basal insulin again. I enjoy how easy it is to switch out the pod. That was very minimal effort for 3 days worth of insulin compared to doing multiple injections every single day. Hey, so it's day number 6 of wearing the Omnipod. My week has been great. I'm really happy with my settings. I don't have any temp basal on. I'm just using the settings from my endocrinologist. I've gone back to all the insulin to carb ratios for meals that I would have used when I was on MDI, and those are working really well too. It's been 2 days since I took off the pod I had on my arm, and that little bump I had where the cannula was is almost gone now, so I'm happy about that. I'm liking the stomach site so far. The first day I wore it, I went to the grocery store and my seatbelt in the car kind of rubbed on it and it was a little bit tender. And then also I wear a crossbody bag that I typically cross over the same side that the pod was on, and that was a little sore as well. So something I'll keep in mind in the future about pod placement is just making sure it's not going to be right underneath the strap of my purse or under my seatbelt. So it's day 7 of the Omnipod and it's time for another site change. And the bump where the cannula is a lot smaller this time. It's barely noticeable. Okay, so I think I'm gonna go with the leg site. Wish me luck here. I'm a little afraid about it. And the placement of pods when it's on your leg needs to be vertical. I'm a little bit nervous about this one. I'm worried it's gonna hurt. Okay. It's on there. All right, pressing start now. barely felt that. That was great. So I was a bit nervous about putting the pod on my leg. Anytime in the past I've given myself an insulin injection in my leg, it often bleeds and then bruises later, so I was nervous this was gonna hurt or bleed, and it turned out to be just fine, and I was worried for nothing. The pod on my leg is going really well. I don't have any kind of tenderness like I had when I had the pod on my arm or on my stomach. My only complaint is that I've snagged it a couple times on my pants when I've gone to the bathroom today, which was something I hadn't considered, and I think I keep forgetting that it's there, so I need to be a little bit more mindful about it, but I think it might be my favorite site out of the 3 just because of how painless this first day has been. I'm interested to try out some of the other features of the pump in the future. I haven't looked into the extended bolus feature, and other than the first 2 days I've been on the PDM, I haven't done any kind of temp basals or suspend my insulin at all, so I think I'll spend the next few weeks trying to learn more about other things my pump can do and how that could help with my diabetes management. My favorite things are that I don't have to stop what I'm doing to bolus anymore. I can just bolus from the PDM. It's so nice not to have to stop what I'm doing to bolus. I also really enjoy the fact that I don't have to take 2 types of insulin anymore, and I don't have to remind myself to take my Traceba in the evening. I just have that basal rate that runs continuously, so it's really nice not to have to remember anything about my basal insulin anymore. The PDM just takes care of that. So that concludes my first week using the Omnipod. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you have any questions or comments about using an insulin pump or the Omnipod, or transitioning from multiple daily injections to using an insulin pump, leave it down in the comments down below. Bye.